Ladies and gentlemen, you are now entering the Decent Christian Talk podcast. Enjoy.
Decent Christian Talk, episode number 93.
And what a year it was.
It was, I don't know. I'm Gabe Jones.
I'm Josiah Jones.
This is a show by the fans.
For the fans.
And we are fans of this band that is on the show today. They are Wolves at the Gate. They just released their brand new record. It's called Eclipse. It came out Friday. So...
It's brand new.
It's brand new. It's hot off the presses. And we are happy to have Stephen from Wolves at the Gate on the show today. Before we head into that, we need to talk about our Patreon page, patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk. For as low as $1 a month, you can keep us on the air.
Yeah.
For as low as $5 a month, you get bonus episodes.
What are we talking about in our bonus content today?
Today on the bonus content, we will talk a little bit more about the interview. We will talk about our throwback album of the week. And what is it, Josiah?
That is Demon Hunter, Summer of Darkness. I picked that album because it has been the Summer of Darkness. It's been the hottest summer in the history of summers, and I have shut myself in the dark and turned the air conditioning on.
We might even give a little shout out to an album called Going Public by the Newsboys, too.
That's a possibility.
Summer of Darkness turned 15 this year. Going Public just turned 25 over the weekend. So maybe we'll do a double shot. Who knows? If more bang for your buck.
If you want to hear that, good content. Did you see, right before I walked in, I saw that Skillet, one of their songs went platinum. They got an award on Fox and Friends.
And one of my friends and friend of the show, Annette Holloway, they used her photographs for the plaque.
Oh.
Yes. So
shout out.
Congrats, Annette. You are the best. But yeah, for as low as $1 a month, you can join our Patreon page. And $5 a month gets you free, not free, but bonus episodes.
You get free bonus content for $5 a month, and then you can get actual music for $10
yes,
a month.
If you get into our $10 a month club, you actually get physical music delivered to your door.
Maybe you want Wolves at the Gate. Maybe you want that Skillet.
There you go.
Maybe you want Demon Hunter. Let us know.
So we'd like to thank our friends Jody and Leslie and Lorena. We've got 2 Marias.
Uh-oh. Do they have to fight?
No, we love them both.
Okay. Well,
and of course our friend Michael Bonner, who is our host here. And where are we?
We're in 13 Palm Trees Podcast Studios. A wonderful, wonderful world.
Thank you, Michael.
In the shade of
for having us.
13 palm trees.
If you want to podcast and you're in the northern West Virginia area,
13palmtrees.com. Spell out
give them a shout out.
Or just Google 13 Palm Trees.
Yeah, so Wolves at the Gate, they are a band on Solid State Records, and they just released their 5th album, I believe, named Eclipse, and it's a fantastic album. This is the 2nd time they've been on our show.
I looked up some things that happened in 93, and I decided that they should have been called Dinosaurs at the Gate, because that's when Jurassic Park came out, and then a bunch of people were talking about Barney as well. Because that's
what are you talking about?
I looked up stuff that happened in 93 because we're doing episode 93.
Oh, okay.
It's famous stuff. Selena Gomez and Demi Lovato were on that show hugging on Barney. Look it up.
They're that old?
Yeah, I was shocked myself.
Anyway, if you haven't checked out, before we head into the interview, if you want to hit pause, there's a couple things I would recommend you listen to first.
Okay.
Because we kind of go into depth on a couple songs, so it would make sense to listen to some of the songs first.
Yeah.
And then before you head into the interview, I'd like to give a shout out to our friends at Jesus Freak Hideout, their podcast, which is also available on iTunes and Spotify. Go listen to their show from last week, because they also had Stephen from Wolves at the Gate. And so this is we're just kind of continuing the love of
trying
Wolves at the
to
Gate.
continue the storytelling.
Yes, and they do a great job there, and we want to definitely plug them. And so before you hear our interview, go check out the album, go check out their interview, and then come back.
Or
we'll
you can
be waiting.
Listen to the end of this interview and then go back and do it over again.
Yes, but before you do any of that, listen to the album.
Yes.
All right. Now that you've listened to the album, let's get into the interview with our friends at Wolves at the Gate.
All right, hit that horn, babe. Let's dance.
I know you've been a new dad. You've got a lot of new experiences. What has it been like creating this album in those elements in your life?
It was definitely harder in some ways. Just honestly, obviously, like time-wise, I'm trying to find time to take care of my responsibilities, but then also to find time to be creative. And it was definitely really difficult because the time that was basically allotted for me was very late at night.
Yeah, so juggling that and all that, how can you stay responsible as being a dad and a husband, and at the same time trying to put in quality time for a project like this?
It's as simple as I said it before. I just did not sleep as much as I normally do, and I really don't start working on any music stuff until my kids are asleep. And so after that, but then I'll spend time with my wife, and then a little later after that, then I'll get to the music stuff. But in reality, regarding like writing music, I get ideas all the time, and I'll record quick thoughts or ideas, like on my voice memo on my phone, and a lot of our records have come to fruition that way anyway. So, just trying to be as disciplined as I can with my time, little time that I have, and set goals, and also just, I was just dedicated to making it happen. I love it, and something so it's not like it's like, a pain to do it.
So looking at some of the songs that are on this record, particularly some of the singles that have been released, a song called The Cure, it seems like it's a song about conflict between doubt and faith. Where did this song come from, and why was it important for you to have a song like this on the record?
Well, for myself, and obviously anybody that would hopefully listen to the record, and guys in the band, one of the, when you think about why we struggle in this life, or why we just seem to be lacking joy or peace or assurance, the beginning of that song really explains it. I can taste the misery, spitting out the remedy. Because really, unfortunately in our American culture, the gospel is just like a very trite aspect of Christianity. A lot of people just look at it as like the primer to being saved, or the gospel is just for unbelievers, or it just doesn't hold as much of a place in our lives. We're saved, let's move on to bigger and better things. And I don't believe that at all, and that's kind of why any sort of doubts or fears or lack of joy, all those things find their end in essentially unbelief, not believing certain truths about who God is, and God's character is most clearly displayed at the cross, and so that was really just my attempt at writing a song that would kind of show the ways that we fall into darkness and doubt, but how God time after time shows us his goodness and shows us that really a side of his mercy and his love is the cure that we need for those things. And so often we just think we're pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps, but it's nowhere in the Bible does it say that.
Right. Yeah, there's another song on the record called Counterfeit. It kind of talks about some of those things that you mentioned about, just man-made religion stuff and things that people get caught up on. So in your life, what have some of those things been, and how have you helped practically overcome those things?
Counterfeit, the thing that's interesting about that song is so often I believe that people think that the lies all come from the outside. They come from the false teachers and the heretics and things like that, and they definitely do. And we have a host of them in our country. We're rich in heresy, that's for sure, and false teachers. But sometimes the best liar is our flesh, and we don't realize it, and we're so quick to blame it on 10,000 other things. And so Counterfeit is really about that. There's kind of like a twofold front. There is all of the things outside of us that hate us and want us to believe lies, because Jesus talked about the devil is a thief, and he wants to steal, kill, and destroy. He wants to take from us, and he uses things like false teachers and things like that. But as well, our flesh hates us, our sinful flesh, that we're still tied to these bodies that are flawed, and they also lie to us. It's when we believe the flesh instead of believing the spirit that's in us that bears witness to the truth. And so, that's really what was at the heart of that song. And for me, honestly, I identify far more with the flesh being an adversary of mine than, Joel Osteen. I know he's a quack. I know that he's a false teacher. But there was a time in my life where I needed to come to the realization of there were all these false teachers and people that I thought were telling the truth at one point in my life, I realized were not. But so I wanted to write it in a way that it could be applied in that sort of twofold front. But for me personally, it's more so just about my own struggles and my own mind and flesh that I battle with. So
yeah. Another song on the record called Drifter is kind of about that struggle, about your flesh maybe telling you some things about, I don't know, that mental conflict about not feeling like you're worthwhile and whatnot. And where did you find yourself when you were writing that song?
So that song I actually wrote for our singer Nick. He's the guy that does the screaming and singing in the band, like the unclean vocals, however people put it. But just as an outsider looking in, every record of ours, I've actually written a song from the outsider looking in on Nick's life. He and I, we're like brothers, and we've just walked through so much stuff. And while we were in the studio, he was just really broken about some things, and he just felt like he feels like history keeps repeating itself. I'll drift away for a time, and then God will bring me back, and then I'll drift away again. And, it really, he beat himself up over those things. And, obviously, like I told him, I said, obviously, I wouldn't want to see that for you in your life, but that is much of the Christian life. No one just walks strong with no faltering their whole lives, nobody does that. You look through church history, there's never been a man who just walked strong and, once he was saved and never struggled again. I said, this is the Christian life. And so I was like, let's write a song about it and let's get it out, And the resolution I told him to come to is, I just asked him simple gospel questions. I said, do you believe what Christ did for you was enough to even, pay for the times that you fall over and over again, though you should know better? He's like, yeah. And I said, that's exactly the Christian life is seeing those things, but remembering what was accomplished in the gospel. And that's why at the end of the song, he says, I'm yours to save. You know, it's that recognition of two things. One, I'm yours. And two, our primary relationship with Christ is that he's our Savior.
So, one of the biggest examples of that community is found with just Jesus being with his disciples and having that community. How important is that when people are going through those times to have those brothers around you, or sisters, well, depending on who it is? How important it is to have that community?
I would say, yeah, it's incredibly important, not because it's, beyond the fact that it's my own personal experience or, disposition, but it's just what the Bible teaches, that, this is all part of God's plan. Like, we weren't designed as people to be, alone or be solo. We know that from the garden that, Adam had fellowship with God, and even before Adam sinned, he sent him a companion, and so there's something in how God made us that's a really good thing. And if it was important then, before man fell in the garden, how much more important is it now that we're all fallen and weak? And as much as we completely need God, a lot of people say like, oh, well, my church is, I'll listen to this pastor online, or my church is like my group of friends. It's like, that doesn't substitute like God's ordained means, which is for us. It's good for us. His intention in having this and having a church set up with leadership and with brothers and sisters fellowshipping is for really the salvation of our souls. And so, yeah, I would say it's incredibly important.
The last song I wanted to look at was a song called "A Voice in the Violence." It seems like it's a song that has some dialogue with another kind of song that has that tension. What does that song mean to you? So, I wrote that song. Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you saw that. It's like a dialogue, because the chorus is really what I would call, the quote-unquote the reason, but it's really the voice of truth, or really the truth of God, because what happens is this natural progression. I've talked to countless people, and they all say the same things, or messaged people, or people have messaged me just about how they'll sin, and then they'll feel like whatever they did, there's no way that God will forgive them for what they did. And they beat themselves up, and they basically just go like, you know what, I'm just going to stay far from God because he can't hurt me then. He can't punish me because I messed up again. And so people run, and that's why it's kind of like talking about drowning out the voice of God. People in the second verse, it says, I hear your voice like it's thunder, like I'm afraid of you. It's just like when Adam and Eve ran in the garden, they ran away and they hid in shame. But little did they know that God is a God of grace, and that that's what He wanted to appeal to them, to show them mercy. And we're the same way. We just think, God's just this big evil being who just can't wait to watch us fail so He can crush us. But what He's been communicating for all of history is that He's a God of grace. He's Savior. And so I wanted that song to kind of be like that conversation, so that somebody can identify with, yeah, I've been in that place. And then hear the chorus that says you're falling in love with the silence. Like, you're falling in love with distancing yourself from God. You're falling in love with, some people go so far as to say He doesn't even exist because they just want to deny His existence. So they have to deal with the reality. But really all it does is just make the pain get worse and worse. And that's what kind of gets exposed in the bridge. Where it just like, it's like I drowned out your voice and hardened my heart to stone. I filled all my voids, but opened my wounds. And the pain takes in deeper and deeper, and that's where everything kind of cuts out. And we wanted to show like that there's still grace amidst even that, just diving deep into running from God. That there is a voice that would call out and say, there's forgiveness still. So Do you think that a lot of times people identify God as that, this person that wants to harm them and all that? Do you think that's just bad theology? Do you think that's part of the society that we're in, this perfectionist society, or where do you think that comes from?
Well, it's hard to say because I think we live in a society that runs hard to two sides of the line, which is he's just this all-forgiving God who doesn't really care about sin, is just love, and like just accept everything, or he's a God who is this big meanie, this big jerk who hates everyone and doesn't want anyone to have fun. And the reality is that he, if you understand theology properly, you understand that he is both holy and just and judge, but also a really good judge who was willing to offer up his son on the judgment seat, and so I just think the problem comes in the fact that there isn't just honestly a simple understanding of what the gospel message entails and what God has done to provide salvation. People either think God is expecting you to be perfect, or they'll think he doesn't really care how you live your life, everything will be okay in the end. And neither one of those things are honestly good at all. I guess that's my take on it.
Kind of leaving your last words, if you could talk to anybody about why they would need to listen to this record, what would you tell them?
I think we're all a whole lot more broken than we would like to admit or realize or even understand for ourselves. And I would want people to listen to this record to identify with the brokenness that I try to identify for myself and for others. And in that is a great opportunity for great hope and great love in the gospel message. And so that's why I would want people to listen to it, apart from the fact that I think these are the best musical songs we've ever written. Just sonically, I think they're a step above what we've done in the past. So.
Nice. Well, thank you for your time, Stephen. I'm very excited about this release. I love what I've heard so far.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time, buddy.
Yeah, no problem.
Take it all as I someone lose control. I was chasing nothing. Take it all for the torment inside my soul.
That was our interview with Wolves at the Gate. I'd like to thank Stephen for coming on the show a second time.
Yeah.
He didn't hate us, so he came back.
Well, I think he was sleep deprived, so he
That's true.
he probably didn't know who he was talking to.
That may have affected his judgment. Stephen is a good guy. We talked. If you want to go back and actually listen to the first interview we did with him, which is in the archives, it was probably over 3 years ago. But he kind of talks about becoming a father. I believe they had twins, and I think they actually talk about that in the Jesus Freak Hideout podcast too. I have one son, and I don't sleep. I can't imagine having twins.
Yeah, that sounds like a good time.
If you say so, but yeah, good for them. They're more strong than me, that's for sure. Yeah, so Wolves at the Gate, their album Eclipse. Kind of before we head off into the sunset, have you listened to the album?
I'm not going to lie. I have had a busy weekend, and I have not. But that's not because I'm not going to listen. It's just one of those things where it's going to happen. It just has not yet. I like to sit down. We've had this talk on our bonus episodes before. I like to sit down and listen with my little book or Google of lyrics.
I will say that we were recording this about 24 hours after the release.
Yeah.
And I recorded the interview about 4 hours after the release.
Yeah, so it is.
So
fresh.
I've listened to it. I haven't really gotten to dive into it as much as I'd like to. But I will say it's like after one or two listens, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I don't know where it will rank with Wolves at the Gate releases. I'm way too early for that. There's not a Wolves at the Gate release that I don't like.
I know one of the Marias that you spoke of that really enjoys the new album. She posted it on her social media.
Oh.
Yeah. Also, did you know that in '93 was the first Got Milk ad?
Yeah. I did not know that.
I'm trying to bring the content here.
There's a lot of stuff that happened in '93, but yeah.
You're the history major in the room. I'm trying to help.
I was
you.
in kindergarten then. So yeah, like I said, we recommend the Wolves at the Gate record named Eclipse. If you haven't listened to it yet, go check it out. I would say a couple tracks off there that I really like: The Cure, A Voice in the Violence. Those are two tracks that stand out to me right now. But like I said, I'm still pretty early on, and I'm sure that maybe on a bonus episode in a couple weeks we might go more in depth into it.
Yeah. Is there anything else new that came out this weekend? I feel like this was a big new music weekend. Of course, The Search from NF came out.
Right.
And then,
there was a single by The Choir that came out. I think they covered that song that Feel It in the Air Tonight.
oh, yeah, from Phil Collins.
Yes, I think they covered that. I think Peabod, which is a hip-hop artist, released a EP, and this is just kind of off the top of my head. I think it wasn't last week, but the week before, and we haven't been on since. Reach Records, if you go on Spotify, they did like a summer sampler kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's some new stuff on there from Lecrae.
I miss summer. Like, summer samplers used to be a big deal, and I really haven't seen much of those lately.
Well, because, yeah. But anyway,
That's how I discovered Family Force 5.
They put out some stuff on there from Wande, who we've had on the show. And
Wande is great.
Tadashi and
Tadashi is great.
What Up RG, KB we've had on the show. But yeah, you need to check that out if you haven't already. And we'd also like to say before we head off into the sunset, I can't talk.
Yeah, the coffee is not kicked in yet.
No. We would like if you could go on iTunes and give us a nice review.
Where?
I'm sorry, Apple Podcasts.
That's what happens. All the people listening are looking for iTunes right now.
Yeah. But we're also on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We still have a website, decentchristiantalk.com. If you don't like the whole Patreon monthly thing, there's a place on there where you can give a one-time donation. And people do that, and that still helps us. So thank you for that.
Just tell a friend.
We are on Facebook, Decent Christian Talk, and there's a group discussion page, Decent Christian Talk Podcast. And we're on Instagram, DC Talk Podcast.
All of those things.
Hey, I kind of mentioned before, little plug for those that are in the West Virginia area. There's a show in Morgantown for a band called Empty. They're also on Solid State. They just signed, and you should come out and see them Friday night. We'll post a link on our group page.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, from what I've heard, they're incredible live. So if you're anywhere in the area, check that out. And if you have any questions, just send us a message.
Yeah, and then we'll send them up the ladder.
Thank you guys for checking us out. If you want to hear more from us, head over to patreon.com/Decent Christian Talk for our bonus episode. But for the rest of you, we will catch you next time.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.
Don't forget to tip your waiters and waitresses. Thanks.